Dr. Patel from Granite Bay Allergy at granitebayallergy.com is with us, one of our favorite guests. Do you have a most dangerous city that you would like to impugn, like we've been doing all morning here on the show? Somewhere you won't go alone, you won't park your car.
Stockton.
Very good. During the break, I was asking you about the difference between immunology, which is what you do, and virology, which I can't even pronounce. It's virology.
Virology.
Okay,
Virology.
but they are close to each other.
Correct.
Because we've had you on for a few years now, and you do talk about viruses and things like that. So I when I know you're coming on, I like gravitate towards certain stories that I want to throw at you. Now I don't do this in an attempt to make you say I am never coming back on your show because you throw these things at me. But I saw a few things. I don't even know if this is. You're so smart. You're gonna have an answer to everything. But I don't even know if this is under your purview. Did you see this thing about mosquitoes that they just released yesterday?
No.
So researchers at Rockefeller University in New York found that people who have higher levels of certain acids on their skin are 100 times more attractive to mosquitoes.
Whoa.
And they're saying that the findings could lead to new products that could mask or alter certain human odors. Basically, if you stink, or put another way, if you're prone to being bitten by mosquitoes, you probably stink. What is that about?
Or you smell good to mosquitoes.
Yeah, right. You're attracted. What is that? I mean, what is that? I saw that. I went, what the hell is that?
Yeah, you know, I had a big mosquito problem at my house a few years ago. I did. So I was like researched like crazy. Like, what can we do? You know, the little UV things and fans and all that stuff, right? And then I had those little, what is it, 4 or 5 miles an hour they can't fly against, right? And then at the end, they're like, same thing. They're like, pheromones or CO2 and all those things. In the end, I turned out getting bats.
Bats?
Bats moved into a tree next door and basically zero mosquitoes.
That solved the... But now you have bats.
No, so I looked this up. It turns out one bat eats like 1,000 mosquitoes a night.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, I should get a bat house. And then moved in, right? Yeah. On Amazon, you can buy these bat houses.
No,
yeah.
what?
You hang them in a tree, and then bats will come to it.
Oh, my God.
So basically now I'm like pro bats. They're like tiny. They're like, this big. And at dusk, you'll see them like fly overhead. At first, I was like, what are these birds flying weird? Right?
Yeah.
And they like take weird turns in the air. And I'm like, And my wife's like, well, those aren't birds.
You might like then a trip to Austin, Texas. I think I might get this wrong. I'm pretty sure it's August, but it's a 4-month span that the bats, people will come from all over because the bats are under the bridges, and right when it starts getting dark, because my husband and I parked at one of the bridges, I mean hundreds of thousands of these things go flying out.
Wow.
Yes, it's like a thing. Yeah, Google that. I forget what time of year it is, but it's massive.
It's not that I don't believe Dr. Patel. I had to go to Amazon and search for bat houses, and hundreds of them come up.
Wow.
They're like little mailboxes.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is the best thing. Like now, we leave all our doors, windows open. No bugs. So it's amazing.
Crazy.
But what is it about these bat houses that attracts bats?
I don't know.
Is there something in them?
I don't think so. No.
So
I
it
think
doesn't
it's
matter
like 'em.
where you live, a bat's going to come.
Well,
It's going to
I don't know. I mean,
sense off the bat house.
I don't know. I'm not a bat expert, but all I know is that I'm pro bats.
Yeah.
Phone number is 888-989-9811. You can email us for Dr. Patel from granitebayallergy.com, rad@radradio.com. Sharon just wrote in, says, hi there, I have allergies to the rabbit brush here in Nevada, and a chiropractor.
Oh, no.
A chiropractor for allergy advice told me that probiotics could help. Is this true?
No.
Isn't that the answer to everything now? Probiotics.
Probiotics have their place, though, right?
Well, you can get
not for allergies so
you get
much.
some of that, and then you get some, get a cauldron, get some eye of newt, some hair from a pigeon, you mix it together,
Are you anti-probiotic?
No, I'm very probiotics. If you have GI problems.
Probiotics.
Yeah,
We have GI
Right.
problems.
If you have GI problems.
But not for allergies to a rabbit brush.
Yeah, not a fly kit.
I'm I mean, I love to go to a chiropractor, but some think they know everything.
Yes, no, and
about everything.
And even the best ones, they always go to everything's got to be natural. And probiotics. They just cut gluten out. And you're like, what?
Yes.
What? Why?
Right.
Just crack the
Your
back.
whole life will be solved if you cut out gluten and have natural cleaning products.
All right, Doc.
Your house won't be clean from the natural
No.
cleaning
Oh
products.
no, not at all. Okay, Doc.
Like an Ebola.
Not to. Everything's political these days, so that's not the point of this. I have a question for you, because I don't know if a lot of our listeners know that we are still in a state of emergency in California as a result of COVID.
Oh, Jesus, what?
And in fact, Governor Gavin Newsom announced yesterday that it will continue all the way through the winter. And I've been preparing you all for this. We're going to go through at least one more season where we get worried about spikes or a new variant or whatever. So, as a doctor, is this reasonable to you? Is this still are we still in a state of emergency? Obviously, COVID's real. We're not COVID deniers around here. We know it vastly affects the elderly, the unvaccinated, etc. Is this a reasonable thing for us and for others that are doing this to say, yeah, let's keep that emergency thing around just in case?
I mean,
in your opinion, as a
obviously,
doctor.
yeah. I mean, my personal opinion is, there have been studies saying that pretty much every unvaccinated person has been infected, right? There's actually a good study that came out, I think it was earlier this year. They found household members who had 100% exposure to COVID. 60% of them were completely asymptomatic, right? So 60% asymptomatic. So I would say maybe add another 20% for not people in the study group, right? So let's say 60 to 80% of people have completely no symptoms. So, do I think at this point with Omicron and 60-80% having no symptoms, 20% can get affected in certain, vulnerable groups. But do I think everything should change again for, a variant that's mutating back to the way regular coronavirus is, right? Like upper respiratory, not horribly severe. Maybe going a little more.
We're closer to the living with the virus.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing.
Endemic, right?
Yeah,
That's what we call it.
Exactly.
Endemic.
Yeah, like every virus wants to mutate to live with people. They don't want to kill people, right? I mean, if they kill people, then they die. So yeah. I mean, we kind of got wind of this last week because we were because healthcare always has to wear masks, right?
Still.
So yeah. Well.
In California, because the CDC a couple weeks ago said, we're dropping that, but state by state, they have it in California.
Exactly, yeah. So CDC actually said this a few months ago. They said it was optional, but healthcare still, they never said yes or no, so we had to keep. So we were actually planning last Friday to come off, and then like 2 days before that, it came out. Okay, there's a spike or something, so they're like healthcare has to now keep them on. So, it's hard to give a solid opinion without pissing someone off, right?
I know. It's because everything is you're a kook to half the people just by even saying that.
Exactly. One way or the other, someone's going to be pissed off. But from an immunology standpoint, you're going to be exposed. Everyone at some point now has been exposed. Whether you're symptomatic or not, there's stuff we can do.
So Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist, he was on the Bill Maher show on Friday I was watching, and he and Bill got into it and he wanted to make a point. He made the point that Dr. Tyson, he followed all the protocols, and he never got COVID, whereas Bill Maher was more like a whatever, and Bill did check him on this. Bill Maher never tested positive for COVID. He got vaccinated, and 3 weeks later, he tested positive. And he wasn't claiming the vaccine gave it to him. He's just like, But Bill Maher made the point to him. He said, dude, you did get COVID. You just don't know. And I thought that's a very intelligent point. Because I never tested positive once.
Same.
I was not very good about following the protocols at all. But we assume we've all had it.
Yeah.
I'm very doubtful people have not had it. At this point, pretty much, even if you're like sitting at home, you're at you're 80 years old, you're at home for like the last 2 years. You've seen like a grandkid or you've seen someone. I just find it very unlikely that people have not had it by now.
But they do like to call people like us like COVID virgins. Because if you haven't officially got the test that said you had it, but there's no way we have not had it. I think I've been sick at some point. It probably was COVID.
Right. I mean,
you know.
One plus to the asymptomatic thing. I mean,
Or
I think I've taken 2 tests in the last 2.5 years. Well, there's plenty of other times where maybe I was tired or had a sniffle or had nothing and probably had it.
Yeah.
There is, by the way, just because, very exciting stuff, a new COVID variant that has sent case numbers soaring in Singapore. It's already in the U.S. It is feared to be the most vaccine-resistant yet. It's called XBB. It is another spin-off of the Omicron variant and has been blamed for Singapore's infection numbers doubling in the past week. Hello there, John. Good morning. I know.
Good morning. I was just going back to what Dawn was saying about the bats. I know it's kind of off topic right now.
Well, the ones in
but
Austin?
you can do that. You can do that right here in Sacramento at the Davis Causeway at dusk. If you drive out and you park on the Davis side of the causeway down below the causeway, you can walk along that little nature area there. And at dusk, the bats will come out in droves, probably hundreds of thousands.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
I don't know. Causeway might be pretty dangerous. A lot of crime happens on causeways.
I wonder if it's a certain time of year because that's how they promote it in Austin. Like it's this 4-month span.
We got this email from Kyle says, Dawn isn't joking. I've seen the bats in Austin in person at the Congress Avenue Bridge in March.
Yeah.
It's literally thousands of bats that come out from under the bridge and fly into the sky across the water from underneath you.
It's insane.
It seems like it's never ending and it lasts almost 10 minutes. Wow. Williams says, because you're bragging, Dr. Patel, about leaving your windows and doors open, says, be careful leaving your windows and doors open at night because if a bat comes inside of your house and gets a good night's sleep, it will attack your alarm clock at 6 a.m. I've had it happen. We'll wake you up right away.
I will tell you. So one did get in the house, right? But again, so we have big doors that kind of open up the wall. So we've had a bird get in once, right? So then I thought in a regular door. So I'm like, I'll open the big doors and it'll fly out. And so another bird flew in, right? so then I had these 2 birds sitting in the house. People trying to get them out for like a whole day. Now, at one evening, my wife and I were on the couch just, having some wine, and a bat flew in. And then we come in, we look at the ceiling, and we see this thing like mapping out the room. It went corner to corner to corner, and then just made little circles all the way down, and it just flew out. Like it was
case in the joint.
Yeah, no, I think it didn't hit a wall. It does that echolocation thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was amazing because we saw this thing like mapping out the room.
Wow.
And then it left, where the birds for days hitting the window, trying to get out.
Yeah. God.
And this whole time you're sitting there calmly.
Yeah, and they're tiny. They're we're watching it. We're like, huh, look at that.
Hey, look at that.
More wine.
I saw one of those videos from one of those intense animal treatment centers where they take wildlife creatures and teach them how to walk again or whatever. And so they had this bat, and they were literally so he thinks he's flying to keep it healthy. It is the cutest thing in the world. They hold him, and then he flaps his wings, and they walk around with him, so he feels like he's flying. So he gets the feeling out. Isn't that cute?
I guess.
We got this email from Allison. All right, now Dawn, you've been under the care of Dr. Patel.
Oh yeah.
And people always get confused. Were you or weren't you allergic to animals?
Allergic to animals. I'm on my way to not being allergic, but it takes, I don't know. Does it take 2 years?
I usually get a 50% improvement in 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, I absolutely already had improvement. So animals.
And a lot of people, they whenever you're on there, we get all these emails where people self-diagnose or they've gotten some bad medical advice. So Allison says, I have allergies to cats.
Oh, that's a bad one.
That started when I was pregnant with my first son 18 years ago. Along with that allergy came a dairy and shellfish allergy. I had simple hay fever allergies as a kid, but as soon as I got pregnant, these random new allergies popped up. Over the past 18 years, the shellfish and dairy allergies cleared on their own for the most part, but these damn cat allergies have stuck around. And I'm a cat owner and lover. And yes, they sleep in my bed all day, and when I lay down at night, all hell breaks loose in my sinuses.
Yep.
I take Zyrtec every night, Benadryl when it's really bad, and 2 nasal sprays every day. I've tried allergy shots through an allergist with no relief. All I was told for a permanent solution was, get rid of my cats. Is there anything you can do to help with this issue?
Yeah, so first on the dairy and the shellfish, I doubt it was an actual allergy. It could have been an intolerance or something, but developing a new food allergy is unlikely into adulthood. The second part is what can you do for cat allergy? Is allergy immunotherapy or allergy shots? However, I think little bit spoken about this is where, there's low dose and high dose. The guidelines all say you should dose high. The more conservative side will dose low, where you're getting only a fraction of what you're supposed to get. So basically, you can make it go away. Just get better, higher dose shots.
Now she did say she went to an allergist, which makes us presume that she was actually tested, because a lot of doctors, just regular GP doctors, whatever, they'll say, "Oh, well, you're allergic to cats," without testing. And it's oftentimes, now in Dawn's case, it was animals, but oftentimes people think they're allergic to animals, and it's not even that.
Yeah, a lot of times what happens is like dogs, right? Dog or cat, it'll turn out to be negative. They're like, "But I swear I've been allergic." And then you're like, "Oh, wait a minute, you're horribly allergic to grasses," let's say. And then guess what? The dog goes outside, rolls around the grass, and then you ask them, like, "Hey, if the cat licks you, do you have any problems?" They're like, "No." Or if you have a freshly bathed dog, if you play with them, is he fine? They're like, "Oh yeah, he's fine." So you're like, "Oh, it's actually the grasses."
So with her, with the cats, I know how awful that could be. I went from my eyes would just swell up and just get so itchy and just watery and would just be awful. And now, maybe a little, none of that, just a little itchy. And that's always beforehand what I described. It's because I'm petting them and then I touch myself and
oh, hello.
Or that hair gets, or touch my eye.
Oh.
Or the hair, like she says, when you lay in bed, that gets on you. But it went literally from that to where it was just so uncomfortable to now it's like I might get a slight itch because I'm on my way to,
And that's with no over-the-counter stuff, no allergy medicine. And Zyrtec's the one you like, right?
Zyrtec or Allegra.
And I only take Zyrtec before my shots. And I'm now down. I'm only getting shots once a month now.
What about with Allison? Because we've talked to you about this before. A lot of women say these things happen with pregnancy. And I know you said, I don't really buy this shellfish and dairy thing. But, pregnancy does really screw with
definitely, yeah. So you have to become... your immune system has to change during pregnancy. Otherwise, the baby's not, half of the baby is not your chromosomes, right? So your immune system has to become more tolerant. So in that process, a lot of things change. We always say if it's asthma, a rule of thirds, a third get better, a third get worse, a third have no change. Then you get, unfortunately, pregnancy has some things you can't treat, like rhinitis of pregnancy, where the nose gets super stuffy, you can't breathe, and nothing you can do about it, right? It just sits there until you deliver the baby. So both ways, things change during pregnancy. Things happen, like things they had go away, and vice versa. So the allergy thing, the cat allergy for sure, but very treatable. Like in Dawn's case, she's only very early on, and then in a year or two she'd probably have no symptoms.
Now, Dawn's a freak when it comes to these things because she likes pain. She likes to be burned by candles and things like that. But when she says she's getting shots, that makes a lot of people recoil. So how do you handle people that are like, I don't like getting shots, man?
Well, the shots, they're pretty small. They're tiny little. It feels, actually, the itching from the shot is worse than the shot. You don't really feel, half the time when you're in there, people are like, all right, give me my shot. And they're like, oh, you already gave it to me. It's like,
exactly. And then they did because they put a Band-Aid on. And then I'm like,
now it's itching.
About a half hour later, the arm's itching.
Phone number is 888-989-9811. We're with Dr. Patel from GraniteBayAllergy.com. Hello, Christine.
Hello.
Hi.
I had a question for Dr. Patel. So my kid's dad has a severe shellfish allergy, and my kids are 5 and 7, and I haven't introduced them to any shellfish just because I'm nervous. And so I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that. Like, am I being over whatever? Like, should I just let them have some and have Benadryl ready, or do it in the ER parking lot? I don't know.
The ER parking lot.
Well, the easiest and safest way is your pediatrician can just order a blood test for the shellfish. If it comes back negative, it's 95% correct, right? So you have a less than 5% chance of them being allergic. Now, if it comes back positive, that's useless information. It's 50% correct, right? So if it's positive, then they'd have to refer you over for a skin test. But easiest way, if it comes back negative, you're like, all right, safe. Go home and eat it.
Whenever we have you on, we have to point out, everybody, they hear allergies, they think achoo. They think, oh, my eyes are running and all that. So, and there's animal allergies, and then there's so many things that are allergy based, including skin conditions. We got this note from Mackenzie, says my mom has horrible eczema on her hands, and it's flared with things that she's allergic to, which is a lot. Raw tomatoes, shellfish, pollen. And now that we've moved, her hands have been so bad. And I know it's something that affects her self-esteem. It's sometimes so bad she can't even wash her hair. She stays away from all those things she's allergic to, but it seems just this new place that we've moved to is affecting her badly. What can she do? So
same thing, actually, immunotherapy or allergy shots. Yeah. That is an indication for it, right? So eczema, one of probably the biggest referral we get from dermatology is bad eczema. There's medicine out, like injections that work, like actual medicine, but you'll be stuck on that. The drug companies love it because it's like an annuity for them, right? But if you want to get off drugs and meds, then immunotherapy, that's an indication for it. You get rid of that. You can't cure the eczema, but if you get rid of a major trigger, the analogy is like you get rid of someone pouring gas on your fire, then you can more easily contain the fire.
No, that's a good point. I want to make sure people understand. Like, I'm not going to be getting allergy shots once a month for the rest of my life. Eventually, I will no longer need shots. Like, that's the point of this, to where he's saying a pharmaceutical company would hate that because I'm no longer going to need them. But, this is something that you don't have to do anymore after so long, which is great.
Okay, we got this note from Randy. This goes back to now the process of figuring out what you're allergic to. He says, years ago, I had the allergy test done where they have little squares on your back. Does that sound right? Yeah. Okay. I can still remember when they stuck me with grass. There was an instant reaction, and it was the only reaction I had, yet they said I was basically allergic to everything. Does that make sense?
Well, it depends on, it's hard to say on this, right? But if there's a certain wheel or hive size, so if it's 3 millimeters over the negative control, that's positive. So if the grass was so bad, it kind of, took all of the attention to that, then other things would have been positive, but maybe not as bad.
Is the testing, is that what you would, back to people who are nervous or whatever, is that what you would describe as the, quote, worst part? Is the actual testing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You get through that, and then it's okay. Yeah. And it's not, everybody's different, pain tolerance and all that. But you don't have people passing out every day in your office as a result of the test.
Yeah.
No, but I would agree. That was the worst part, the testing.
Yeah.
And then after that, getting the shots and doing all that. And it's funny because they couldn't share with me at the time. They're like, we'll share with you at the end. But, you're getting the little, I don't pricks or whatever that is of the different allergies. And then it was just on fire, the worst. I'm like, I need you itching. I'm like, what is that? Is that the animals? And then after everything was said done, they're like, yep, that's what you responded to. It was bad. I was like, oh my God, I felt that. It was, ugh.
We got this email from Vincent.
Hey, Vincent.
I always love having Dr. Patel on because I have to learn new words. Does the doctor have any input on vitiligo?
Yeah, so vitiligo is that the condition Michael Jackson could have had, where basically your melanin, your immune system destroys your melanocytes. So basically, you stop making pigment. So you have splotches. Usually starts around any part that's moving a lot. So lip corners, eye corners, and then hands and so forth. So
he says I have spots all over, and my doctor doesn't know why. So apparently somebody came up with vitiligo.
Oh, so if it is, vitiligo is pretty easy to diagnose. You can see it, and if they're not sure, dermatology can biopsy it. But, there's treatment to slow it down. But in the end, you end up just kind of bleaching the rest of the skin to kind of make it more even.
Hello there, April. Go ahead.
Hi, I just had a question about mold and mildew allergies for Dr. Patel. Into my adulthood, after having a couple of kids, I realized that every year at Christmas time, when we would get like a fresh cut Christmas tree, I would be super sick like the whole entire time that we had the tree in our home. And one year my husband just grabbed the whole entire tree and like threw it outside because he was like, "What's wrong with you?" And after that, I was fine. But I also find that anytime I have a sister-in-law that lives in Susanville, and when we go up there, my whole face just feels like it's swollen from the inside. Like my nose is super stuffy, but it's not because there's like snot and stuff. It's just swollen on the inside. What can I do for mold and mildew? That's the only thing I can think of that it is. Is that like a thing, and what can I do for that?
Yeah, you could have a mold allergy. It could also be the trees, or it could be something else around there. A lot of times, people will blame whatever they see, right? In spring, people are like, oh, I have a cottonwood or a pine tree allergy, because you see the little things flying around. But every other tree pollinates at the same time. So yours could be the mold, which is a common allergy, mold allergy. And yes, that will, windy days or when it's more moist. In summer in California, not so much outside because it's so hot. Basically,
Don't get Dawn started on how hot it gets.
It's terrible.
Yeah, so that it kills most of that airborne stuff. But you basically have to get tested to see exactly what it is, and then most of the time you can get rid of it.
Phone number is 888-989-9811. You can email us, rad@radradio.com. For Dr. Patel from Granite Bay, allergy.com. This email from Eric takes us back to the day I fell in love with Dr. Patel the first time he was on. Is it true? I could bring this up every time you're on. Is it true that if you consume local honey, you will relieve yourself from allergies?
No. Going back, we'll give you a briefer botany lesson, right? Birds and bees, so animal pollinated trees and plants and things, those pollens don't get airborne, so you can't get allergic to them. Whereas wind pollinated trees and plants, those get very airborne, around 500 miles or so. So you get exposed to those. So local honey and bees collect pollen from non-allergenic things. So basically, if you see a bee, we talked about it, unless you're allergic, bees are your friends. So if they're on flowers or trees or plants, then those are typically, like almond trees are bee pollinated, so those don't cause allergy. Walnut trees are wind pollinated, so they do cause allergy.
So the only reason that you'll be buying local honey is to support your local bee farmer.
There you go.
That's it.
And
it's
well,
not for allergies.
honey's really good for you.
Honey,
Honey.
Honey.
They've had small studies with Alzheimer's and
wow.
And, they've had things with honey. It has a lot of anti-inflammatory effects. So yeah,
there's just no correlation between that and the allergy thing.
Unless it's psychological, in which case that's fine too. Right?
On the anti-inflammatory note, if you deal with cystic acne, the ones that don't get ahead, put some honey on it, pure honey, nothing with any additives, and that does help.
Kelly says, I have a question for Dr. Patel. Is there any correlation between allergies and ulcerative colitis? My son was recently diagnosed with UC, and he has a lot of inflammation. Just wondering your thoughts.
Unfortunately not. It's no, that's an autoimmune disease, so it's not. And it's unfortunate, yeah.
Caitlin says, my mother-in-law, here we go, says she's allergic to raw fruits and vegetables.
What?
When I asked her what she's done to treat it, she said decades ago her doctor told her to simply not eat them. Is this a real thing?
What?
I told her she could have a cross reaction about your segments, and she acted like I slapped her. Needless to say, I avoid eating dinner or holiday meals with her because she's a terrible cook as well. No issues with the mother-in-law there.
Fruits and vegetables.
So that is part of the oral allergy syndrome or the pollen food allergy syndrome. As you become more and more allergic to certain pollens, they do cross-react. So, birch, like the prototypical one, is birch pollen cross-reacts with a lot of stone fruit, like apples and peaches and nectarines. So when you eat those raw, they actually make your mouth itch, your throat itch, GI symptoms, because your body thinks you're eating a mouthful of birch pollen.
Oh.
But they're heat labile, meaning if you cook them, you'll actually eat it. So apple pie will be fine, or strawberry jam, things like that.
Cobbler. Oh, man.
Yeah, peach cobbler. So it's extremely rare to ever be anaphylactic. I don't even give EpiPens for those. You just basically, you don't have to avoid it, you have to cook it, or also if you eat them out of season, you can eat usually a little more.
I do love her mother-in-law, though, sticking to this thing she was told by a doctor decades ago.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, cross-bacterial.
And I'm with you. There's something there with her and the mother-in-law, because her having this thing with raw fruits and vegetables would not make you a bad cook. That'd be separate. Because you can make, as we pointed out, a lot of lovely things that are cooked with that
I will say, as a side note, there's a very nice 80-some-year-old lady I saw like several years ago. She was there with her husband, and they're the sweetest people. And, someone told her a while ago she was allergic to like ascorbic acid, vitamin C. I'm like, I don't think so. So anyway, so for like 60 years, they had not gone to a restaurant.
Oh, God.
If she went to family people's houses, she'd bring food with her.
What?
Like all the stuff.
Oh my
it was horrible. So people get stuck in their head And, it could be from bad information or whatever happened.
Not a restaurant.
I know.
They go on dates together to
so,
a restaurant.
Obviously she came in because gave her some vitamin C and she saw nothing happen to her. So, then I'm like, all right, you're fine. Go ahead, leave. And then when she came back just once, just to say hi and thanks. But her husband was more grateful because he's like, now we go to restaurants. It's like we're 20 again, right? They're like, we can go eat at restaurants, all this food. I'm like,
oh my God, I love that.
I'm like, try some Thai.
That's so sweet.
I love that.
Paul wrote in. He says, "Hey Rob, will you please ask Dr. Patel his general thoughts on getting the Kenalog shot? I have been getting one once a year, and I only get half the recommended dose. Lots of details I could tell you. I'm just looking for Dr. Patel's general opinion on the Kenalog shot."
It's not great. Usually, it'll help you. People think it lasts a whole season. It doesn't, right? It lasts for a couple of weeks. The thing about Kenalog is it gets you over the major hump. So if you're like at a level 10 and you feel horrible, you get a steroid. Kenalog's just steroids. So you get a steroid shot, it'll bring you down from a 10 to like a 1. And then it'll climb back up when you're out of like the horrible part of your allergy season. And maybe it'll climb back up to a 5 or a 6. But then you feel better because you're like, oh, it's not a 10. So, and the thing is, steroid shots every year is bad. It's bones and steroids in general have a lot of side effects. So unless I kind of reserve steroids for, if you need to do for a rush immunotherapy, or if I didn't give steroids, you'd end up in the hospital. So that's kind of how I decide.
Hello there, Victoria.
Oh, hi. Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Quick question for Dr. Patel. I have a daughter. She is going to be 9. She's on her 2nd year of the shot therapy for allergies. She's very allergic to cats, dogs, and a whole bunch of other trees and grasses. And when I asked the doctor if there are any hormones or steroids in the shot, he confirmed me that there are nothing like that. But I noticed, it's kind of funny, but she started developing sooner than comparing to other kids that I see. So are there any side effects like that to those allergy shots that she's getting?
No. So her doctor's correct. There are no hormones. I mean, it's saline albumin. So the albumin is like a protein in your blood to make it not as stingy, and some glycerin just to make sure, because when they make, everyone has their own shot vials, like, personalized medicine. If you've heard about that, it's kind of like each person has it, and then that vial lasts like a year. So, you want to make sure it doesn't lose its potency. But there's no hormones, no steroids, none of that stuff.
She might just be an early developer because I went through that and it was awful. Because there were no other girls developing boobies, but I was. It was like 8, 9, and 10 years old, and it was awful and embarrassing. So I feel for her.
Tim.
Hormones and chicken, right? So,
Hi, Tim. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for taking my call, Dr. Patel. I have a question. My son was born with many allergies. He grew out of all of them except for peanuts. But when he eats food that is fried in the peanut oil, like some of the fast food, I know that they fry their food in peanut oil, he doesn't show a reaction. Could that be because the peanut oil is heated to a certain degree, or what would be the explanation?
No, so you're partially right. So the part about him not being allergic to peanut oil is true, because oil, when people have food allergies, it's 2 proteins in the food. Oil is all fat. So peanut oil, and you want to get the highly refined peanut oil like in Chick-fil-A. There's actually, there's absolutely no, who doesn't like Chick-fil-A? So for some reason, I always crave it on Sunday. I go to the, I go there, I'm like, I'm like, But yeah, so any highly refined peanut oil or any highly refined oil from any kind of food allergy is actually not allergenic. So as long as, if there's some peanut protein in there, it's bad, but that's why the highly refined is totally safe.
Michaela says, I'm 26. I have eaten kiwi my whole life until a random day when I was 22. Now, anytime I eat kiwi, my entire mouth and throat go completely numb. That has its benefits.
Poor thing.
Not tingling or itchy, but completely numb.
Oh.
Yeah, that'd be probably the oral allergy syndrome.
Just out of nowhere?
No, so she probably is getting more and more allergic to one of the cross reactors. And sometimes if you develop a latex allergy, that can happen also. So latex will cross react with was it like bananas and avocados, cantaloupe, chestnuts, kiwi.
So she knows what's up when the boyfriend comes home with kiwi. Hello there, Matt. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
So I had a question about malt allergy. My wife, over the past couple of years, has stopped being able to eat like most breads. I have to look specifically in the stores for like things that don't have malted barley in them, and she can't have like White Claws or any of the malted beverages either. Is there anything you can do to fix that, or is there like a treatment for it?
So if she was able to have malt before, and this only began now, so it's probably some kind of confound that needs to be investigated. Developing a brand new food allergy into adulthood, I'd question whether that's accurate.
How'd they narrow it down to that? There's so many things in bread. How'd they narrow it down to the malt?
Could be that self-diagnosis thing, or the thing you see on multiple things.
Well, actually, here's a way to know if she's ever eaten something in the last few years. And then you're like, if you look through everything and you see that there's malt in something and she ate it by mistake and did not have a reaction, so what happens is when you see something, then you see it everywhere, right? If all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. So basically, it's like when you're like malt, everything is malt is the problem. But look at the flip side. Like, see if she's eaten something with malt and not had a reaction. If that's the case, then it's not malt.
Anthony says, I break into hives when it's cold, or if I take cold showers. This just started happening in the last 2 years. Is this something I could be helped with? Yeah, so that's called cold urticaria, cold-induced urticaria. So that is the only version of urticaria that you do actually have to carry an EpiPen. So earlier I said if you got oral symptoms or hives or anything, you don't need an EpiPen except for this. So the reason why we give EpiPens is, let's say you're somewhere and you fell into a pool, or you're out skiing and something happened, snow got inside. Basically, you'd have so many hives develop at the same time. You'd release so much histamine into your system. It would be what we called in the past we called it anaphylactoid reactions, but now we say non-IgE mediated anaphylactic reactions. Basically, it's the same things that come out and can cause similar symptoms to anaphylaxis without actually activating the immune system, but it is something serious. Let's do the housekeeping stuff real quick. So you take self-referrals,
yes.
Most insurances as well, and they can make appointments online at granitebiology.com. Yep. All right, hello there, Megan, go ahead.
Hi there.
Hi.
So I'm a 10-year-old who recently, over the last year, we're not sure what's causing it, but every once in a while her lips will swell up really big, like it looks like she got lip injections, and it will burn, and her tongue will burn. We haven't narrowed down what exactly is causing it yet. Her doctor thinks that it might have like a tropical fruit allergy, but nothing on the allergy test showed up, and she gets these really random patches of hives. Is there any way to test different fruits to see if she's allergic to them without putting her in danger?
So there's two answers to that question. First is if the blood tests for that came back negative, then you can pretty much rule out the food allergies for that. The second part is, since she has, the lip is called angioedema and the hives on the skin is urticaria. So this is called, urticaria angioedema. If she's had it for several years, like you said, it's most likely something we call chronic spontaneous urticaria angioedema. It's a lot of words. CSU. So what happens that is a condition where her body makes antibodies against the receptor on these mast cells, not mast cell activation, but mast cells, and then it makes those mast cells degranulate. There are triggers, things like stress can do it, and stressors can be psychological or physical, meaning infections or trauma, or the kid's upset or angry. Vaccines can do it because it's not the actual vaccine; it's just activating the immune system. So, unfortunately, there's no cure for that, but it will. A lot of times the cycle of the textbooks will say 2-3 years on, 2-3 years off, or it lasts a few years and it'll just go away forever. This is not typically something external. It's usually something internal, like we said, the antibodies. But we suppress it with antihistamines.
Hello there. Yeah. Greg, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning, guys. Hey, Dr. Patel, I have a sister-in-law, and she gets all of her news and information from TikTok, which I told her is ridiculous, but I get all of mine from a DJ.
Anyway, and Facebook and the bag of the grocery store.
Oh god.
Yeah, but she said that she had heard something called a parasite cleanse, and that would eliminate your allergies. But I've never even heard of a parasite cleanse. Can you tell me what that is, or if you know, and what it would actually benefit?
Yeah, so that is what we call folklore. Not true. But I think I know where it's coming from. So the pull part of our immune system that causes allergy, asthma, all the things that developed nations have don't really occur in developing nations. So if you think about it, like 1,000 years ago, humans ate a lot of before fridges, we ate a lot of meat, a lot of stuff that was contaminated with worms. And before that, humans, we scavenged a lot too, right? So humans ate stuff sitting around for a while. So we have an entire arm of our immune system, like mast cells, the eosinophils, basophils, that are there just to kill off worms and parasites. Well, guess what? We don't have those in developed nations. So they have an entire arm after thousands, millions of years of evolution, basically, are sitting there and doing nothing. So now they start attacking things they're not supposed to attack. So there was actually a study done with this, saying they infected people with like a tapeworm to see if they can skew their immune system back and to not being allergic. It didn't work.
Oh, you don't say.
Oh, God.
So TikTok's wrong.
I know.
This email is a perfect example of why we love having Dr. Patel on. Evan wrote in and says, I don't have any allergies. Hopefully I will never go see Dr. Patel, but this guy is awesome. I love listening to him. Yeah. Dr. Patel from GraniteBayAllergy.com. Thanks so much for being here, man.
Of course. Thanks for having me.